Hello everyone, I'm Mentor64.
And I'm Volkamar.
And welcome to the HellfireComms playthrough of Fantastic Dizzy for the Sega Mega Drive. Bit of a nostalgic treat, this playthrough, because this is one of the games I played as a child, and it's really one I've been meaning to get to, but I've just, never found the right time to sit down and record the footage and whatnot. And Dizzy, as you can see, is an egg. All his friends are eggs, his family are eggs, except for the villain, which we'll bring up in a little bit. And Dizzy is actually an older series than you might think, because it goes all the way back to 1987, where it started out on the Amstrad CPC and ZX Spectrum. Most of the games were converted for Commodore 64, Amiga and so on, and then obviously you get ports like the ones for the NES, Mega Drive, Game Gear, etc, etc. And this is the version of Fantastic Dizzy I played as a child. Never owned an NES growing up, so there you go. And it was actually called The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy outside of Europe, so the more you know.
Well, I've actually never heard of this game before until you actually came up and told me about it, so this is a rather exciting journey for me as well, taking a trip into your childhood, as it were.
Anyway, the plot of this game, as you can see here, is to rescue Dizzy's girlfriend, and to do that you got to utilise items efficiently. You got to collect all the silver stars, 250 in this version of the game, and basically those will help you reach Zaks castle and get inside and rescue your egg girlfriend. And never before in the history of HFC have I uttered such a strange sounding sentence.
Well, that's another one to cross off the list then. And it also might be worth noting that in the other versions of the game, you only really need 100 stars. And I think that might be in part due to the Mega Drive's faster pacing, so they added more stars to compensate for that, but that's my theory anyway.
Pretty much, and Dizzy's kind of a weird beast when it comes to like genre classification and whatnot. Wikipedia actually lists this as an adventure title, and I can certainly see that, owing to the fact that you need to collect items that are scattered around the environment and, try them on like different objects, on people, to see if you can get the desired results. But personally, I always saw it as more of like a puzzle platformer, because there's tons of platforming sections in this game. And I think because of this game and stuff like Pugsy, Cosmic Spacehead, games which I've mentioned many times on previous HellfireComms playthroughs, I think I like puzzle platformers like Abe's Odyssey and so on, and I guess even adventure games a lot more than I would have if I had never played Dizzy and so on.
I could agree. When I was playing through this originally, I definitely got more of a puzzle vibe from it, but I did pick up hints of the adventure as you go through all the different areas of the game. There's all these different areas with all these different themes, and it really gives you the vibe you're part of something much bigger.
Exactly.
It does a great job of combining the two together to give the illusion of one, but giving you the experience of another.
See, right here for example, you needed a piece of wood to create a bridge to get over a pit. That's just one of the more simple puzzles in the game, trust me. They will get a lot more obtuse as we go on.
Yes, definitely, we'll see more of that later. And I think the treehouse section was really meant to set the tone more than anything, because the tutorial we got at the beginning basically showed the buttons, and now it's showing us these really basic puzzles where you bring this item to this location. And eventually it will get a lot more complicated where you need to find several items and use them all together.
Now, while Dizzy is a very peaceful protagonist, he can't attack, you can be killed in this game, as you can probably tell by the egg-shaped life counter down there. And if you take damage from anything from spiders to acid raindrops, as we'll be probably seeing in part 2, you can use fruits and the like to restore your health.
Yes, but the fruits are limited, so the best thing to do is perhaps manage where the fruits are, and if you take damage, come back to particular locations to pick them up again. Because there will be some areas in the game where you'll take more damage than others. I'm just going to leave it there.
What you really want to be careful of is the enemies that don't actually hurt you, but just stun you. Because they'll usually be accompanied by ones that can do real damage, and that's where the pain sets in.
Now, this underground section I thought was pretty well done as well, and actually gave me my first minigame experience when I was playing through the game at least. And I particularly like the music setting in this game because it sets this dark and dreary tone, and it's very unusual compared to the outside where it's all bright and cheerful.
This music actually scared the crap out of me as a child. It's very atmospheric actually.
It does a really great job of setting the tone, and I absolutely loved it. And all the music in the game, really.
Yeah, the presentation values are top notch. As you can see in the background, it's slowly fading from day to night. And it, again, like Volk said earlier, it just gives you the feeling that you're on a grand adventure.
Yeah, it's spanning over several days, and all the environments have been carefully detailed to ensure that you are as immersed as you possibly can be.
Well, for a game about an anthropomorphic egg, anyway.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I just now realised this, but I get a bit of a Nightmare vibe. You know, the show Nightmare with only being able to carry like 3 items?
Oh yes, that's true. You're always wishing you could carry that 4th item somehow.
Don't expect to see any more of those like monstrous plants. That's a bit of an oddity, and I don't know why it's hanging around the village. Maybe it's one of like Zaks' spells.
Maybe so, but I think the most the great factor is that Dizzy has killed something.
Yes, well, again, he is a peaceful guy. You won't be seeing much slaughter in this game.
Yeah, but some people might perceive it differently. They might think, oh god, Dizzy actually managed to kill something in this game. Better stay away from him.
Nah, I'm following like a strict FAQ for this, so when you see me like drop items and whatnot and then like come back for them later, you should probably do the same, just so you don't lose track of where they are. Or you can just leave them all in Dizzy's house as kind of like a waypoint and so on.
Yeah, there are plenty of landmarks around the game that don't actually hold any significance to the game themselves, but it's great just for storing items in general. So, for example, if you wanted to store a few elevator keys or house keys, for example, sometimes what you might instead do is leave them outside the person's house. But as things get more complicated later on, you may think, okay, here's a particular location that I'm going to need these items in later, I'll just leave them all here and come back to them when I need them.
Exactly, don't just leave them in random places, and especially not, say, like behind one of the trees and whatnot, because I've done that before, and I must have spent like over an hour trying to find where I left the particular item.
But at least you can actually recover it with that rope item. If you actually leave it somewhere where you can only use the rope to get to, you're actually not ever going to be able to complete the game, ever.
Yeah.
So, you gotta be, as long as you're careful of that, and careful not to leave items in the background, you should be absolutely fine. I actually did the rope thing once. That was not fun.
There's actually another item in the game, which, funnily enough, we'll be seeing in part 2, where if you leave it in a particular place, you won't actually ever be able to get back into that section again, because you need the item to get in there. And that's the whole thing about, like, Dizzy and games like Dizzy, in that it teaches you to manage like items effectively. And again, I think it's like a perfect learning game for this genre. It especially got me into it, and that says a lot really, considering my limited intelligence.
Indeed, I definitely think micromanagement is one of the biggest factors in this game for certain. The house keys is another thing I didn't really think made much sense, because I'm just thinking, okay, you've got all these people in the treehouse. Why have they left all their keys just randomly lying around outside?
When in doubt, blame Zaks.
Yes, but there's a character we'll be meeting in the game pretty soon. He gets frozen in ice, and yet his door key is probably on the other side of a treehouse, so I'm wondering what the heck happened there.
Maybe the blast was so powerful it just knocked the key out of his door and across the entirety of the treehouse.
It's possible. Pretty lucky landing spot though, I have to say.
And speaking of the treehouse village, we haven't actually gone over this yet. This is the secret treehouse of the Yolk Folk. That's right, the eggs named themselves after what they are.
Yes, it's rather... I still can't get over that. It's just, hey, we're a bunch of eggs that talk to people. What do we call ourselves? How about the Yolk Folk?
This guy is just 90s personified right here. He's an egg, he's got a cap, he's trying to be all like Fonzie and whatnot. Actually, he's kind of like an amalgamation of crazy.
I can just picture him right now in that ice, like chattering away and going,
I love how my first summation of the 90s was, he's an egg. I actually didn't mean to start with that.
It's okay, this whole game's pretty damn confusing so far, so you can be forgiven for that. Now, another thing I noticed going through the entirety of this game is that there are a lot of spiders. Like, a very big spider problem. Makes me think Zaks is only a secondary concern at the moment, and this spider pandemic, so to speak, has taken over the world, and Dizzy's actually trying to find a way to stop that as well. The Zaks thing is just a thing on the side.
Man, this music is just so nostalgic for me. Definitely one of the better pieces of my childhood.
The Yolkfolk Treehouse music is definitely one of my favourite tunes in the game, but actually one of my absolute favourites is the one in the village that we'll be coming to later on.
Ah, Keldor.
Yes, Keldor. That's probably one of my favourite themes in the game by far. just the way it goes in general, the tune, and how cheery it is. It just really goes far away to set the tone of the game in general. Like, if it wasn't for the whole thing of Zaks, it gives you an idea of just how peaceful this whole thing would have been.
Pretty much, even though you can get killed by wandering snails.
Well, yeah, this is true. But they're just wandering around. They won't do you no harm unless you run into them.
Okay, now, to heal Grand Dizzy here, you kind of need to think outside the box. This is where the puzzles start to get a little bit more intricate. For this one, you actually need to collect like 3 medicine items, and if you take a look at this thing here, as we'll just have a look here, you'll see there's a flower and a mushroom, and we've got those, but we also need a bottle. Luckily for us though, the bottle is right outside.
Yeah, and another good thing to mention here is that you don't have to leave the items right next to the cauldron. You can just put them in the cauldron, come back with the 3rd item and pop it in, and then you'll get the medicine. You don't get this idea that you have to have all 3 items and put them in at the same time. You could collect them one at a time if you want to and throw them in the cauldron individually, and the game will actually remember what you've already put in. And I think that's a really handy little feature.
There's no more use for the ingredients list, so don't worry about that anymore.
Yeah, that's just basically to tell you what you need, and we already have all the items anyway, so we don't really need it for all that long.
Well, I have an FAQ, so balls to you, game!
It's like, this one piece of paper, we have at least 4 pages of information here.
Okay, let's go give Grand Dizzy his Mountain Dew, maybe he'll get better.
Yeah, it's just a strange concoction of Red Dew and Red Bull or something.
You gotta wonder, is this like a Donkey Kong situation? Is this guy like the original Dizzy, and then like, he turns into like Cranky Kong or something?
I actually thought that initially, but then I actually remembered something. There are actually some water sections coming up later in the game, and I found this out just out of sheer chance, but apparently an egg that is past its sell-by date cannot float. So the Grand Dizzy probably had to retire when he was too old, because when it came to the water sections, he would just float on the surface and he couldn't actually go anywhere.
That's genius.
So it's like, well, I'm a bit too old now, gotta leave it to a younger egg who can actually sink and is capable of doing the underwater sections.
Now, you think me being me, and wanting rewards for all the chivalry and whatnot, I would, you know, not accept anything less than money, but you also forget my magpie-like tendencies, so a golden shiny egg, which probably has no market value, has a lot of market value to me.
It's just like, okay, I've got the golden egg, this will do for me, and just take it and run.
Exactly.
Skip town. It's like, this has happened to me no less than 5 times now. I'm just going to take this egg, retire somewhere, and that'll be that.
Okay, well, we've got Daisy's door key. Not really the girl herself, but we'll get there at the end, I guess.
You think that was something Dizzy would have anyway, since it's his girlfriend and all.
True, true. Maybe they're not cohabiting eggs.
Okay, so this is one of the optional minigames that you'll find around Dizzy, and there's actually multiples of these, and it's the only way how you can get extra lives in the game.
Yeah, this type of puzzle is really not what I'm best at, so I pretty much just, like, get by like a hair, but it's okay, I guess. The music's pretty funky, at least, and it's got a nice little bit of tension as it ramps up as time goes on.
That is true, and I'm not particularly good at these games either, but I didn't actually find these too difficult. They're not overly complicated, and they're kept relatively simple to give you a good chance of actually getting the extra lives themselves. And one thing I particularly found a little bit on the disappointing side is that through all of these minigames that you find, the picture is always the same. What I would have liked to have seen is perhaps some different images, not necessarily not including Theodore and or Dizzy, but just having some different settings, some different pictures to look at. I think it would have made these sections a lot more fun, and it would actually encourage you to find all of them. Definitely,
definitely. Now, they do increase in difficulty as time goes on. You know, they're not just going to hand out lives willy-nilly, so there's a little bit of challenge there, but they're okay for the most part. They're definitely not like, say, Tetris Advanced level puzzles.
Not at all, and some of them are a lot harder to find than others. Like, this one's probably one of the harder ones to find, truth be told. There's one coming up in part 2, I believe, that's literally just on the floor waiting for you.
Like, come on, just get it over with.
And there we go, that is done, and this is our first appearance of the good wizard Theodore.
Why is he here, doing puzzles, and not taking down Zaks, the lazy fuck?
I know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be here to give you extra lives, but that's it.
He can clone people. You could amass an army of Dizzies and just break down Zaks' castle door.
One-man army taken to literal effect in this case.
The attack omelette.
Tactical assault omelette. It's just there with like green camo face paint. We're here for Zaks and to get bitches.
But mostly Zaks, who honestly, when you see him, he kind of reminds me a bit of Gargamel, so we got a bit of a Smurf situation going on right here.
It kind of screams Smurf in a way. Just the whole surrealness of it and the fact that there's these beings that really shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but yet they are.
Don't be too daunted by the large amount of stars, trust me, this isn't a very long game overall, and the stars are placed quite closely together in some parts.
Yeah, I mean with the NES version, if you missed a star, generally you have to go back to certain locations anyway, and the stars increased here are laid out in such a way that there would be in areas where you'd find a star in the original anyway. There are exceptions to this, which we'll probably get to in part 3, but for the most part, whenever you'd find a star normally in like the NES version, you would find more than one in the Mega Drive version. Just walking around Daisy's house, stealing all the food and her stars, and yeah, that'll just about do it.
Well, she's not here, I'm just gonna take the goods and leave.
Looting. A major plot point in Dizzy.
Dizzy loots his girl, the unreleased game for the Sega Master System.
As the world is plunged into chaos, Dizzy takes the opportunity to loot the world of all its valuables.
As you can see, we picked up this strange little purple koala thing, and obviously you need the cage for this. You can't just drop the cage and wait for the little purple fuzzy thing to walk into it. No, you've got to drop the cage as it's walking by you, otherwise it won't have any effect whatsoever.
Yeah, and you can drop items and switch them around by picking them up and dropping them again. So whatever item you pick up will be the last item on your list. And as you drop items and pick them up, it will go further along in the queue.
Yeah, so whatever you want to use immediately, make sure it's in the third slot, especially for situations like that, where you need to catch the little creature. And trust me, it can take quite a few tries to get it. I was lucky there. That was my initial take.
Yeah, you can't just put the cage in front of the thing and it will just get caught. You actually have to time it right as well, so there's a lot of timing involved, and you have to make sure you actually get it bang on the nose in order to catch it, otherwise it'll just run off and you'll have to chase after it again.
The rope doesn't seem to care where it is in the queue though, it'll just barge ahead and make itself known. Which
is actually really handy, because you'll actually need the rope in quite a few sections of the game, so usually the rope's a good thing just to have with your person in general.
Well, person, egg, all the same really.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. I still can't get over how snails are one of the deadliest enemies in the game.
To be fair, you're an egg, you can't attack, and you're wearing boxing gloves. You're not really going to put up that much of a fight.
That may be true, but it's still a snail. The best it'll be able to do is slime you.
Well, whatever.
Well, put it this way, the snails and the spiders aren't going to be the most unusual thing we see in this game.
Yeah, Dizzy is one of those games from the 90s which didn't really give a shit about reality.
No, you'll find anything and everything in places you wouldn't even know. And we finally have the elevator key for Dylan's house, so we can see what his problem is.
Well, I think we know what Dylan's problem is.
It's just like, Dylan, we need to talk.
What, man? I'm having fun being an egg. Dylan, we're all eggs.
And then just at that point, after Dylan's come clean for like a month, he finally realizes the absurdity of this entire game and just offs himself.
Jesus. Throws himself into a frying pan.
Egg suicide.
Okay, now this is Dizzy's sister, and when you see what you have to do to free her from the particular spell Zak put on her, it raises a few eyebrows.
It begins with P, I'm just gonna say that.
Doesn't everything, Volk. Doesn't everything.
So we're just gonna leave him, or leave her rather, outside of Dylan's house.
We'll be coming back. Let's just hope Dylan doesn't get the munchies in the meantime.
I don't think Dylan's French, so I don't think we need to worry about that.
Hey now, let's not give in to stereotypes. Fucking egg bastards.
So I think at this point that's almost all the stars in the treehouse now.
Pretty much. There's a few scattered here and there, but don't worry, my OCD pals. We'll be back to get them soon enough.
Yeah, we'll come back here later on, because some of the Yolk Folk you can't actually rescue until you've gone past certain points in the game. It's all split evenly, so you can rescue maybe half of them, but you have to go through the rest of the game first in all its areas to actually rescue the other half.
Like, you saw how we went into Denzel's house, and we put down the straw or the hay. We won't be getting the other item we need to solve that puzzle, the match, for much later, actually.
Yeah, it's probably one of the last areas you'll actually visit, depending on which way around the world you end up going. So there we go. Apparently we had to rescue Pogi the Fluffle for Dylan, because apparently he was too high to do it himself.
Damn, he really has got the munches.
He was keeping a small horse.
That's a cow, you silly guy.
Not according to, Romania.
So the Yolk Folk bred their own species of pygmy cows. I guess there was like many more Yolk Folk to begin with, and when they were trying to like get milk, they just kept getting crushed. Like under hoof.
It's like the Yolk Folk scientists was like, okay, this whole cow crushing egg thing is becoming a serious problem. We need to remedy this.
Plenty of leaps of faith in this game. I hope you don't have a fear of heights.
One thing to actually note is if you do fall from too great of a height, you'll actually make Dizzy, well, his namesake, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
And if you're unlucky enough to get a snail walking by, you'll be dead.
Yeah, because he does get stunned, and he does become dizzy. Now, you see what I said here? We gave the prince the frog, he kisses the frog, and now he has an egg wife. Dizzy, what are you doing to me? This isn't normal, you're an egg. And considering what type of game this is, that's saying something. Thanks for watching part 1 of the fantastic Dizzy playthrough. We'll see you all next time where we bop on through the countryside and into the mean streets of Keldor. See you then.
See you then.